All right, folks, welcome back from the commercial break. Amanda's on a quick assignment. She'll be back in the next block, but I'm glad to join my next guest, a man who 8.5 years ago began an effort to create a convention of the states in America. And this week, we are now at the halfway point. 17 of the necessary 34 states have now voted to have a convention of the states. The man behind that incredible mission, Mark Meckler, is joining us now. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be with you, John.
What a week it has been for you in the movement. Tell us what it's like to see these last two states, Wisconsin and Nebraska, coming in, and many more on the horizon, correct?
Yeah, it's been an incredible week to see Wisconsin first come in on Tuesday. Incredible victory for those activists out there. I'm so proud of all of them and the legislators who led the way, really great champions. And then on to South Dakota, where we passed out of the committee, blew through the House floor, and this week we're working in the Senate. And then, of course, we finished the week with Nebraska. That's been a long, hard fight in Nebraska. We had an incredible champion in Senator Halloran. Great grassroots out there. So that takes us to 17, the halfway point, and there is a lot more in the dock right now.
Yeah, it is remarkable. I want to ask you, for those viewers who may not be familiar with this movement, this self-governance movement, this return to federalism and states' rights, describe what's at the heart of the Convention of the States and what you guys hope to achieve when the 34 states finally vote.
Yeah, really at the heart of this is the idea that the American citizen is sovereign in our system of governance, and we believe that we, the people, should be in charge, not some bureaucratic elite thousands of miles away from our states and our communities. And we have in our Constitution a way to restore that balance. Article 5 of the Constitution gives us the way that we can amend, and we can propose amendments to restrain federal tyranny. It takes 34 states to call a convention. And of course, we just passed the halfway mark. And when they do, they gather in convention. In our case, they're going to talk about things like term limits, forcing a balanced budget amendment, and taking the power away from the federal government to be involved in things like healthcare and education and energy, things that were always meant for the states. So really, this fight is about who decides in America, and we answer that with we the people.
Yeah, taking power from Washington, returning it to the people, exactly the way our founding fathers intended. About a year ago, I was sitting around with one of our mutual friends, and it was right when the COVID thing was kind of going sideways, and people were just getting frustrated, pulling their hairs out, and they said, this is Mark Meckler's moment. How much has COVID and the failure of Washington and Fauci and Biden impacted Americans' willingness to say, you know what, we want to take this back?
Yeah, I think it's having a major impact. And what we're seeing is that people are watching what's going on in Washington, D.C. They're seeing large scale incompetence at every level of government. And they're saying we can do a better job at home. And we're tired of Washington, D.C. intruding on our lives. We have about 1,000 people a day join the organization on average. When Joe Biden gave his vaccine mandate speech, over 20,000 people joined the organization that day. So that gives you a very measurable look at what happens when the federal government is out of control and how it affects people's willingness to take back control for themselves.
Yeah. One of the things I love you do, you've created this poll that comes out a few times a month, and it really measures the disconnect. There's real America, middle America, that knows what they want, and then there's these guys and gals in Washington who are totally disconnected from it. How do we close that divide in the long term? How do we get Washington to be more responsive again and realize they ought to be listening to the people that sent them there?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't think Washington is going to be very responsive. And this is why I think it's important to take the power away from D.C. The founders always expected that Washington would be a problem, that a central government would be a problem. And so they designed this system of federalism. I know you're a big fan of federalism. And that system was designed so that the vast majority of things that we do as a government together as people are to be done in the states and in local jurisdictions, not in Washington, D.C. And we've largely broken that system of federalism. We put too much power in Washington, D.C. The courts mostly are responsible for that. And so I think we need to reverse that and take the power away from D.C. So it's less about making D.C. responsive and more about making D.C. less powerful in our lives.
Yeah, that really is the lesson that I think we've learned from this period of time. When you started this, I first met you when you were with the Tea Party Patriots. You built a tremendous organization. Then you moved on to this. There were a lot of country club Republicans, a lot of Republicans that kind of enjoyed big government, homeland security. Today, the party is in the hands of a whole new generation. You got Ron DeSantis and you've got Ken Paxton in Texas. You got these folks that are really exercising their rights and tugging that power back. How important is to have those major players now on the national stage?
I think it's incredibly important, and I think there are a new and younger generation of politicians that have a different perspective on what states are supposed to be and what they should be doing vis-a-vis the federal government. You mentioned Ken Paxton. He's a personal friend. I think he's the best AG in the United States of America. And you have country club Republicans trying to take him out, of course. I think as somebody you didn't mention is Kim Reynolds. Governor Reynolds in Iowa has done an incredible job. Yeah. There are other governors around the country. Ron DeSantis, of course, is, I would call him America's governor at this point. I think there's an entire generation rising, and I think you're going to see a lot of them rise out of these school board fights around the country, younger people in their late 20s, early 30s that are just entering the political fray, and I think they're going to alter the landscape for a long time to come.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I've covered politics since the early 80s. I haven't seen this level of energy at the grassroots at any point in the last 2 decades. This is really a remarkable moment. It sort of went Tea Party, Trumpism, and now this moment. We got about a couple minutes left. Tell me what we should be looking for next. You mentioned Iowa. I think Iowa is one of those states where we might see the convention go next, right?
Yeah, I think actually probably next is going to be West Virginia, if I had to bet, or South Dakota. South Dakota's already through the House and we're into the Senate. So that could happen as early as next week. On Monday, I'll be testifying in the West Virginia House. That should move pretty quickly. We've passed the Senate there before. If we get out of the House, and I'm assured we will, the Speaker's on board as a co-sponsor, that could pass next week. So we could actually get 2 more states next week. Close behind, I would say, is possibly Pennsylvania, Iowa, Kansas. We have a hearing next Wednesday. There's so much stuff happening around the country. I'm having a hard time keeping track of it, honestly.
Well, once you got momentum, that's a good thing. We got about a minute left. You've got a slogan, 22 in 22. Describe what that goal is and how you think you're going to hit it.
Yeah, so right now we're at 17 states. And so, of course, that means we would need 5 more states to pick it off. I think we have 3 immediately in the dock here. And so I think there's a whole bunch of other options out there. I think getting to 22 we're going to do this year. So that's 22 and 22. The main way we're going to make it happen, it's not me. This movement's all about the American people. There are over 5 million people involved. It happen if your viewers get involved, if your listeners get involved. They can do that by going to conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, even if it's already passed in your state, let your legislature know that you support it, and then click the Take Action tab and volunteer, because it's not enough to complain. It's not enough to sign a petition. You need to be in the fight.
Absolutely. And you have built an army of more than 5 million Americans all pushing in the same direction. Mark, congratulations on the success this week. Can't wait to get you back on the show.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.